Welcome to a pretty chilly March run where I'm going to be telling you all about whether a training plan might be right for you in your own running. So I'm doing an out and back course today and I'm running out towards Newcourt area and then I'm going to turn around and run back. On the way out, I'm going to be telling you all about reasons why the training plan might be good for you, and then on the way back I'm going to be saying reasons why it might not be good for you. However, you guys probably won't know where I'm going out and back because I'm going to put them all together. So you'll probably have one reason for and then one reason against. And then at the end, I'm going to come to a little conclusion as to what I think training plans are good for and not so good for. So I'll see you a little bit later on the run. So the first good thing that most training plans do is that they give you structure within your training. You'll have a certain number of runs each week and then they'll mix it up between different formats. So not all of them will be base runs, not all of them will be interval runs. They'll give you that variety and structure in order for you to improve and keep up your fitness whilst also getting better and kind of enjoying it. I feel like quite often if you do the same thing over and over again, it can be quite boring. So having that variety within the structure can be quite good for you and keep you going for longer. So one of the biggest things that I think training plans can really struggle with is the fact that they are always forced towards a goal. So whether that goal is completing the training plan or whether it's to run a new distance, there's always kind of something at the end of it. And it doesn't really encourage running for running sake or just enjoyment. I think for a huge amount of people, just running on its own is the goal. Being able to go out for a 5k, once a week, that's what they really enjoy and that's what they want. I think being on a training plan forces you to think ahead and be like, oh, well, why am I running? Like, why does there need to be something that we kind of do our hobbies for? I was kind of reading a book the other day and he was talking about how one of his hobbies is walking. And with walking, no one's got better since they started to walk. It's really hard to actually get better at that. Let's go down these steps. And that's one reason why he really enjoys walking, because it hasn't become this kind of driven, goal-orientated activity where he needs to be making progress. I think the same can be said for running. Training plans also help with consistency. So if you're someone who kind of sporadically runs, maybe you do lots one week and then, you take a few weeks off, then you do a few more, a little bit off, they can really help with building up that consistency because you are running for X amount of runs pretty much every week for the entirety of the training plan. Some training plans may encourage you to build up a day, so maybe you start with 2, you move up to 3 by the end of it, but they really do help with giving you something to do each week and you're not having to think, oh, I did this last week, therefore maybe I can go a bit easier this week. It's kind of all built in already. So whilst training plans do kind of aim to give you that consistency and that schedule, they are someone else's schedule at the end of the day. So they are likely going to need some tweaking, some rearranging in order to fit into your own life. And sometimes that can feel like a mammoth task. If you're unable to run on a Wednesday, say, and that's always the day that they put the long run on, you're going to have to find somewhere else that you can put that. And that can take some time. And it might kind of mean that, your long run moves every week as to what day it is. Because you literally just can't fit it in consistently at the same time every week. And it's knowing that that's okay, but that maybe the training plan isn't quite right for you. Alright, whilst I walk up this hill, let me tell you about another thing that training plans have, which you might not put into your own schedule if you're doing it yourself. And that is rest days. So most training plans will have at least one rest day on their own schedule. This could be a complete rest day where you can just, sit on the couch or sofa or, in bed all day and not really feel guilty about it because that is your training. At the end of the day, we actually improve quite a lot more if we do take rest. That's saying you don't want to take too much rest, but your muscles literally have to repair themselves, and they do that by you taking rest or sleeping. So take those rest days, don't feel guilty about them, and if they're in your training plan, you're kind of getting credit for it, you know. So there is literally no reason to feel guilty for it. I know quite a lot of people, when they start something new, they feel like they have to do it every single day, but with exercise and kind of like working with yourself, you do need those kind of periods of down to help you kind of regain stamina, build up that muscle, and actually be able to go again just as hard. You don't want to always be doing hard training. So yeah, that's a good thing for training programs. Right, I'm almost at the top of the hill. I don't know if you can see the bottom. It's quite sunny, even though it's really cold. This next point is more user error. So if you are getting onto a training plan and you're like, yep, this is a good one, it's going to get me to a marathon, and then you start it, and actually you're starting with way more running than you've ever done before, that should be a red flag. But for many, because they're so orientated on getting to the end of a training plan and doing it, they're just going to force themselves through. So being able to listen to yourself as well as the training plan is so important. And I think all these training plans should come with a little, you know, thing at the top being like, hey, if you're feeling a little bit sore, maybe don't do the run. Something like that kind of encourages people to do what they're capable of. And because you don't want to risk injury by following the plan to the letter and then at the end of the day not being able to complete it. So listen to yourself as well as your training plan. So lots and lots of training plans also come from a wide variety of experts in their field. So you might have an Olympic coach in your pocket or on your phone. They're kind of using their own experience in order to help us normal runners kind of catalogue of other people and athletes that they've trained in order to see what works and what doesn't work. So I said most training plans are by an expert, and that really is true. There are some out there that are kind of by, we'll call them training plan cowboys. You know, you want to check out who's written it, kind of why they've written it, what experience they have. You know, you don't want a training plan written by anyone, you know. They could be a cyclist. They could be, you know, someone who doesn't really take part in sport, but they just want to make a little bit of money on the side. So always check where the training plans are coming from so you actually know you're not following one by someone who you shouldn't be. Because everyone also has their own style of training, and that might be right for you, might not be right for you. Each training plan will have their own style. So each person that creates one, you know, likes running in a certain way, or they think this is the best way. And that might not be the right way for you. You know, there are some training plans that will do 2 lots of hard workouts a week. There are others where you'll do hill running or hill reps. And it's knowing what you kind of enjoy, and you're going to be able to wake up and be like, oh yeah, I can do that. I want to do that. Instead of feeling like, ooh, do I really have to? So have a look around, because there are different styles and you need to find one that you like. By the nature of a training plan, because somebody else is kind of making it up for you, you don't have to think about it, which means it's a great way to be able to build up distance and save you time, because you're not thinking for hours on end, oh, it would be safe to do this, that's best practice to do that then. I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to be able to do everything, and at some point we need to just be like, look, we actually can't do everything, and there are some things that are good for experts to do. If it's going to save us time, let them do it. Okay? It might cost us a little bit of money in order to get their expertise and save that time. Lots and lots of business books that I read kind of let you know time is money. So if you're spending time on something where you could be working or making money, you know, that's kind of effectively you've just lost out on. So that is an excuse to outsource everything though. You know, because time can be money. Doesn't mean you should always let everyone else do it. But in the context of training plans, I think if you're someone that really struggles with planning and really struggles to really know what is good, having someone else do it can be a little bit of a relief, really. Now, most training plans start in a nice place, so they'll start easy and then gradually build you up. But what might happen is you might start at a level you're comfortable with and then suddenly be in for more than what you planned for. So I think if you are planning on getting on a training plan, you want to have a look at the whole training plan, or at least know what it's building up for. Because it might be that it starts with, a 5k 4 times a week, and like, this is comfortable. But then within 6 weeks, you might be doing a half marathon on Saturday and a half marathon on Sunday, and that might just be too much for you. So always have a look at the full plan to kind of avoid those injuries I mentioned before, but also to know where you're headed and see if that's still going to be a comfortable level for you, or if it's just going to be too much. Remember though, if you are building up for something new, it is going to probably look like a bit too much. But I kind of think, does this feel realistic? Is this something I want? Before you even start. If you struggle with motivation, training plans can be great for that, because you can kind of see your progress the whole time. You have a plan that you're working through. Every time you complete something, tick it off and mark it off, know that you've done it, and kind of have that little boost from completing something. Not just being the best at something, but just being able to do that, turning up. Again, with that consistency thing, you're being rewarded for actually doing things, which is lovely. Now, if you're someone who loves being able to check things off of your training plan, you might fall into this trap with them, and that is that you start feeling guilty if you have to miss one out, because you'll feel like you're not good enough, or you've not done it perfectly, or you could have been better. And it's really hard to shake that kind of feeling of guilt off from your training plans, because it's something you've wanted to do, but suddenly, you've not been able to give it that time. That's a really annoying horn, I'm sorry. Don't know where it's coming from. And everything comes up in life. Things come up that mean you can't do your running. And we need to be okay with that, because we can't do everything. And most training plans are kind of built for you to be able to do 80% of the training plan and still be good to go. They're not kind of there for you to complete every single thing. So it's remembering that. And if you are kind of planning a new distance, that doesn't mean you can take off that long run every single week, because that long run is really important. So it's knowing, there are times where you can shake off the occasional run and you'll still be okay. And you shouldn't feel guilty, especially if you're prioritizing something else. My final positive for now about training plans is that they can be a more realistic way to build up your distance. So say you want to do a marathon and you don't really know where to start, but a marathon's a long way. The first thing you might do is just head out, and do a half marathon. And honestly, that's kind of crazy, unless you're kind of fully up to fitness and you've done a little bit of running before. If you go out and do a half marathon, you're almost definitely going to be sore the day after. And whilst training plans, you might still be sore after some hard workouts, they're more realistic in terms of building up that stamina and having a good time whilst doing it. There's going to be less time you sat around and like, oh, that was so hard, because you should hopefully build up gradually and feel stronger every time you go out. Okay, so that is the end of my points for and against a training plan. And now I bet you're wondering, okay, well, Rhiannon, what do you think is best? When would you use a training plan? When wouldn't you? So here we go. Here is my conclusion. So I think that training plans are great if you're trying to get a new distance, or maybe you're trying to get faster, because they can be such a good way to have a structured workout or program without really having to think. And I think that outweighs your own freedom a little bit. If you save time in the long run, it is a lot better. Like, I wake up quite a lot being like, okay, well, what am I doing this week? What am I supposed to be doing? And I always like having a plan is so good because you don't have to think about that. It's already made up for you. However, I do think there is, you know, times when you're trying to maintain and you're trying to kind of get the joy back in running. And I think those times are times where you shouldn't use a training plan, because it's so hard to find a training plan that is kind of maintaining, that is kind of doing the same thing over and over again. But there are periods in your life where you want to just stick with the distance you know, hang out with that for a bit before taking on something new. Or perhaps, you know, you've done a big marathon that year, and I don't think, you know, you should be doing multiple back-to-back training plans. I think there should be down periods. And if you are kind of feeling like you're always on this training plan grind, take a little bit of time off, you know, kind of ask yourself why you enjoy running. Because if it is just to get that tick, like, that's okay. But I do think that having that time away from a training plan is great. And that's kind of what I'm in right now. Just running because I can. I mean, it does mean that I'm walking a little bit. But hopefully soon I'll be back to kind of running normally.